reasons why those sanctions were lifted. But what do we stand to gain if those sanctions are lifted?
I think the president has finally realized that his attempts to go to war with his neighbors was an ill thought out decision, and now we're looking at the path of peace. So these countries have also further tightened the noose on Nigeria by saying your planes can fly in my airspace, and they said they were going to leave ECOWAS, and the president will not want ECOWAS to be in this area under him. And I think in line with the advisory of former President Yakubu Gowon, this was part of the things he said in his letters, it was just best to leave sanctions, calm things down so that they can go back to the table and discuss with these countries. Yakubu Gowon is the last founding father of ECOWAS in 1975, and he knows the antecedents of ECOWAS and everything. So I think his advisory aggravated. Whatever the government say humanitarian, yeah, it could be humanitarian, but really it's because we're suing for peace now. And also, when you look at the West African sub-region, Niger with a lot of problems with Senegal and the likes, they're still going back and forth as regards elections. So I think it was just the best thing to have done. And it's a welcome, it's a decent move.
Okay, talking about the sanction on, this countries, talking about the 4 countries, a former member of the House of Reps, talking about Dr. Bugaje, have come out to say the president was ill-advised. And of course, according to him, he said Lagos boys were the ones that misled the president on the Niger crisis. What do you think about it? Do you think, some individuals influence the president's, choice?
Decision.
I don't think individuals would influence your decisions. Where's your own sense? I mean, there's no how. No matter how much you tell me the benefits of putting my hand in fire, I will not put my hand in fire. And I don't want to believe some people led him. There were also Western pressures. I think it was more about trying to tilt towards Western pressure. The West will never want to do their dirty job. They'll look for proxies to do their job. I mean, we can go back historically how Africa in the 70s became a proxy battleground for the Cold War. The ideologies, take for instance, you remember the fight in Angola between the MPLA and UNITA, and how the Americans were heavily support the likes of Jonas Savimbi against, the MPLA and all of that. And also remember what happened in Mozambique with the likes of Frelimo and all of that. The Soviets were supporting one part. I think the Soviets were supporting MPLA in Angola. Americans were supporting Jonas Savimbi and the UNITA and all of that. So, these things are proxy warfare. So that was what they wanted to set up. But in also listening to the West, then I'm not sure we took into cognizance the very strong cultural ties between Nigeria and Niger. I mean, there was former President Muhammadu Buhari that says my family is in Niger, or my relatives are in Niger. Truth has to be told, almost everywhere you turn to, you have a Nigerian in the north that has some extension in Niger. So these things came to play, and that's why you saw there were massive protests and everything. But once the president saw that it was ill-advised, he backtracked. So there are many fundamentals. So this idea of the North constantly attacking and saying Lagos boys, I don't understand what that means. There are many things that happened during that period.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Rufai, still on this issue, I mean, they had raised a couple of reasons, talking about regional cooperation in terms of the fight against terrorism, seen as, sometimes some of these terrorists move within our region, right? And then they also called security cooperation in terms of sharing intelligence and, participation, and also in terms of immigrations as well. Some of these reasons were what was listed as giving those sanctions.
Like I said, there were many influences, but I'll really pick. I think the influence of the West was so strong, and also remember the antecedents then that the president was trying to show the West he was an ally. Remember then, that was the first call he received from Vice President of America over the Niger crisis. So I think Now the cultural pressures really held sway. So now that they've seen that this is nowhere else, and the West will systematically try to realign and recalibrate, because it's not hard and fast. I mean, God knows how many, uranium concessions or uranium influence capital that France lost in all of this, because Niger was heavily producing uranium. So it's also looking at that dynamic. So that the dynamic angle to it. So Niger was a solid mineral deposit for countries like France and
Okay.
one or two things. So let's see how it pans out.
Okay, while we see how that pans out, there are also considerations how tomorrow will pan out, especially for the NLC and other trade unions that are set to embark on, 5-day protest from tomorrow, because